Hey, everybody, Google Plus has a big security hack that they told no one about, but it doesn't matter because they're shutting the service down. Bloomberg says many Chinese chips are for spying against, well, everybody. Apple's podcast service being manipulated for ratings, and the new iPad Pro might do 4K and USB-C all tonight. God, that intro was just stellar on the Mac to the Future Livecast. Mac to the Future Go Livecast. Go. And hello, everybody. We are here live. It's Wednesday night, 8 p.m.-ish, more or less, here on the Mac to the Future Go Livecast. And, of course, as usual, I am here with Mr. Warren Sklar. Mr. Sklar, how are you this evening, sir?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. And
Just
you?
good? Oh, well, I had an exciting weekend.
Yeah, I heard you saw football, the
I
American
did.
football.
I saw
Yeah.
lots of football. For people who didn't know, who don't listen to, because so very few people do, Guy's Daily Drive. I went to Ohio last weekend and visited with my friend Dave and his wife
Oh,
Joyce.
hi. Oh,
Oh, what is high in the middle and round on both ends, Warren?
oh, hi.
Oh, oh, old Warner Brothers joke. Okay, basically on Sunday, Dave and I went to the Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens football game, with everyone expecting the Ravens to just roll right over the typically hapless Cleveland Browns, but it didn't quite work out that way. And actually, you know
Rightfully
what I
so.
heard? I don't know if this is true or not. I heard that there were some members of the Baltimore Ravens that were upset because they were only 3 point, 3 point favorites.
I mean, the Browns have momentum. They've won. I mean, it's 4 games in. They won a game and they
Well,
tied a
five
game. There
games. They've had
is it.
5 games,
Okay.
and there's been 3 ties. They tied at the end of regulation against Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
They beat who did they beat? It was somebody else that they
They
beat.
beat somebody,
Oh
and
no, they
then
lost. They lost to somebody else in overtime,
I think they're
and,
one
and
and
then
one
they
tie at this point.
and then they won against the Ravens in overtime. So they're 1-1-1 in overtime with one
Right.
other win and one other loss.
Right, and considering last year they were 0 and 15,
So
they got some
yeah,
momentum going.
yeah, that's not
16.
bad. And their
So
new
yeah,
quarterback, I can't think of his name, but
no,
he's actually really good. I was
well,
pleasantly surprised. And
they
I've got to
that,
tell you, the
that's what you get
Cleveland
for a
Browns,
first round
yeah,
draft pick. Get
yeah.
things, yeah, nice
Uh,
things.
if he can stay healthy, the Cleveland offensive line was not that great. He got hit a lot and had to scramble a lot. And linebackers and linemen love it when quarterbacks scramble because that gives them a chance to slam them to the ground repeatedly.
I
So
am well aware because of my team is the Giants, and um, my quarterback stares at the sky more than staring at the other ends of fields because he's always on his back.
yeah,
So we're gonna see how it goes. I'm going to. There's a big rivalry game tomorrow night between Giants and Eagles that I'm going
right.
to if the weather holds because we're sort of this hurricane is kind of hit us, me and you, in the
Well, yeah,
middle.
but that's not supposed to be until Friday, I thought.
No, they're
Is it
saying now
moving faster than that?
they're literally it says because the game's Thursday night and it literally says the heaviest thunderstorm shower is going to be from 8 p.m. till 11:30 p.m. tomorrow night. and
So
that's
just in time for the
exactly
game. So
it's
yay.
going to be great. So I'm just
Well,
debating.
we'll see. Honestly, by the time it gets up to, it's got to go across Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and by the time it gets back into the ocean around like just south of the Virginia border, I'm not anticipating that it's going to be much more than a tropical storm. And that's not
No,
to
it's not
make
supposed to
light
be.
of something that's this huge in a tropical storm, because they can also be very, very nasty. As a matter of
Yeah,
fact,
but
Cletus Heaps was giving us updates earlier today
I saw his
on,
video, and it looked
yeah.
scary. So this
Well,
one,
hurricanes are nothing to screw around with. And as
this
compared to
one
Florence, now
backed
when
up. Yeah.
Florence was coming in, there was a lot of hype. I mean, everybody was just nonstop. Oh my God, and this time, even though this is a stronger hurricane, it's a little bit faster moving. It seems like CNN and MSNBC and the Weather Channel and some of these other stations have kind of gotten the word to uh, uh, tone down the death, doom, and destruction talk that they were doing
Yeah.
with Florence, and just give relevant information. Where is the hurricane? How strong is the hurricane? What are some of the potential things that a hurricane like this can do?
Yep.
What do you need to prepare for a hurricane? And
Well, this,
throwing out the, well, we have here Mr. Smith, who owns the local grocery store, and he's saying that all the water and toilet paper are gone. It's like,
this one came up too fast.
they
This
didn't have
one was a
time to hype
category,
it up.
huh?
They didn't have time to hype it up.
No, watch CNN today. It's pretty hyped up, but it was not supposed to be this strong, so it didn't have enough time. But yeah, the last hurricane, I forgot which one was. Had the video of the guy
Yeah, that was
in
during
the hurricane.
Florence.
Was it where he was blowing away and then two people casually
Yeah, they
walked
were
by
just
behind him?
casually walking by in the background.
Like,
It's
what?
like, yeah, you really didn't think that through, did you, buddy?
Anyhow, stay safe.
Okay, well,
Stay safe, everybody.
we got some people over there, and a few of them have noticed that I'm not wearing my headphones.
Yes. Or
So
pants. I haven't noticed the pants
I
yet.
have pants on, but I also have
Oh,
these. Whoops, sorry, this side. These. Finally got my AirPods to work. It was such a disaster last week that I actually took a little bit of time and
I'm not wearing
figured out.
pants, by the way.
You're not wearing. Okay, please don't stand up. Don't do it.
With the real Slim Shady. With the real Slim Shady, please stand up. Yes, AirPods they're great. You like them, right?
I do. One of the things that all these weeks and months that I've been doing this show, having to wear those big sweaty headphones for an hour can be big and sweaty.
Yeah. Now we look like toothpaste dildo twins.
Yeah. Well, I'm if I keep my head straight, you can't even tell that they're there, and I can just
If I point them at you, I could shoot at you. Pew pew.
I can
pew, pew.
I could just wave my hair around. Yay. Okay.
Yeah, between you and Gaz, who were holding out, he was holding on the watch, and you were holding on these, and then you get them like,
Yeah,
why didn't I do this before? They're good.
I don't know. I spend my money in other stupid ways, I guess. Okay. What should probably come? Oh, crap. Excuse me. What should probably come as a surprise to no one? Google Plus is now a minus. There. Oh, damn it. There may be one more. Google Plus is shutting down. But before they shut down, they have one more little surprise for us, Warren.
Yeah.
Did you hear about this?
Yeah, the whole world. Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's not the story is not. If you actually listen to it, it's not as bad as it sounds. I mean, there's a lot to it. Where first of all, it wasn't like a security breach as much as it was a possible exposure that they can't say whether anybody got any data. And it's not like they weren't telling people. They told, I mean, they did. They came out. Nobody found it, so they did it. I think they were waiting for the Facebook thing to kind of blow over first because he was the Google CEO was supposed to sit in those Facebook hearings or something like that, and he never showed up. He never.
I wonder
They're like,
why.
why didn't you show up? And it's probably like, it's probably not a good idea. It's not
To
a good
announce.
time. It's not a good time for me to say, you know what? Yeah, Facebook is not that bad. In fact, just the other day, it was funny.
I came into work and the craziest thing happened.
It happens, So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what happened. So I think the timing was bad for him, and they did come out and say it. But yes, it was bad.
Yep.
Google Plus is sad.
When was the last time you went on Google? Did you ever go on to Google Plus?
I joined one day, and that was it.
We had a My Mac podcast page over there, but I don't think I've gone to it in 8 months. It was just nothing happening over there.
I have in England a cousin that uses Android stuff. So when we first started, talking to each other, we were using that because he doesn't have an iPhone to communicate. Because Google Plus was also kind of tied into Hangouts, which kind of turned into their call feature kind of thing. It was all kind of tied together. So
right,
we kind of used that for him, and then
So you don't just talk. You just don't talk to him anymore. In other words,
I think, but he finally got a Facebook Messenger. So, he was
He's still alive.
He was one of those people who were avoiding Facebook Messenger because
of
reasons, and then he decided not to. But yeah, so I mean, they're shutting down the service. Nobody's going to care because nobody uses it, and
so they announced it themselves.
They did. From what I read, I haven't seen that anybody discovered this. I think they came out and said it themselves, unless you see anything, unless you could see something else. But I don't think there was a discovery as much as a admittance of this.
Well, there was a story. There's a link there from the Mac Observer saying that the hack was discovered in the spring of this year, 2018.
They knew
and that user profiles and other information were available through this hack since at least 2015. Google made the decision not to tell anyone about the hack as they were afraid it would lead to possible government regulations. So, what do you think that there'll be any fallout to Google based on their non-disclosure?
Yeah, the government's making them shut down Google Plus.
I don't know if they're making them.
No, that's pretty much it.
It's like yay, Google Plus, yay.
I don't think there'll be any government involvement in this one. I think
okay.
It's kind of be over.
Well, do you think the Google Plus service will be widely missed? I'm saying that and trying not to laugh.
Yes, the John and Bob will miss them, whoever they are.
Those two guys that had no other way to communicate.
They're going to wake up this morning. They're going to wake up tomorrow morning, try to play Minecraft on the Apple TV, and try to log into and it's going to just be like, why did I wake up today? I got to go back to sleep. Nothing is working.
Google Plus is down. Google Plus is down.
As they try their backup plan of dialing into CompuServe, that didn't work.
And AOL.
And AOL, yeah.
Well, they'll just move their whole thing over to eWorld.
Yeah.
Or what was the other? What was not AOL? There was MySpace. MySpace. Yeah, they're going to use MySpace now. All right. So
they'll make a comeback now that Google Plus is gone.
So nobody cares about Google Plus. That's what I'm. Reading between the lines.
If we need more fuel to, say that Google's privacy and security is not great, this is not a good thing for them either. Actually, I was listening to, just on side note, that they announced their Pixel 3 phone, and it does.
It was kind of a soft launch.
It was a soft launch, but there's two things that it does, and one is it will screen your calls for you. So if somebody calls, it will say, "Hey, guy's not available. Who are you and what do you want?" And I'll tell him.
And then you
And
could
then
listen
the
to it.
robot.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I heard today is basically there's the Google Show or Google Screen now. It's like the Google. It's like the Alexas and all that, but it's a
Right.
screen. Anyway, anything you upload to Google Photos could show up on that screen. But they were explaining that it uses AI to identify you and your friends and things that kind of will display relevant things or maybe even share things with friends. So I mean,
I
it's scary.
see.
Google knew they know a lot of things about things, and it is, one day
We'll all
we'll
be
take
very
over.
sorry. We'll all
We'll
be
all be
very,
sorry.
very sorry. All
We'll
right.
be very sorry that we didn't read those terms and conditions.
And that we didn't stick with Google Plus when we had the chance.
Yeah, when we had the chance.
We're going to move on to the next story.
Okay.
All right. The chips are down. This is a story. Bloomberg made a big deal about this. Bloomberg is claiming that Chinese intelligence agents or units have added microscopic chips inside of servers used by a multitude of companies, including Apple. So far, every company that Bloomberg has listed has denied the reports, and Bloomberg has given little chance for investigation before publishing all of these reports. So there was something, it was kind of weird. As I was reading this story in Bloomberg, they actually made a reference in the article, and I think it must have been a mistake, to 5 other times when Bloomberg has made some kind of crazy announcement regarding computer security, and it turned out that they were wrong.
Hmm.
And this was actually in the story that Bloomberg was there. So how reliable do you think these reports are based on Bloomberg's history?
It's just it's a weird story. I mean, it's like Bloomberg's not backing down on it so much, and nobody knows what they're talking about, and Bloomberg won't tell anybody how they found this out, other than
Well,
they have
there's
anonymous.
some Israeli computer security company that's involved in this as well,
That I
and
haven't heard.
they're claiming that they're supposed to be the source of this Bloomberg article, and
But how are they gonna?
well, I mean, the conspiracy theorists are like, "Who? It's an Israeli company." It's like, just throw all that aside. Could it be that this company is kind of using this for self promotion?
To
And to
Bloomberg
me, it's
or
like
the company?
if that can so blow up in your face.
I mean, the Israeli company was also the one that came out with that box. I don't know if it's the same one or not, but they're the ones that came out with the hacking box for the iPhone.
Mm.
And when they said they had something like that, everybody kind of called them crazy because there's no way you can invent something that's going to be able to crack passwords, and supposedly they did. So I mean,
Well, I can think of a couple ways they could do it.
well,
You download the contents of the memory, because you have, what is it, 10 tries before it blanks out.
but that's what they were doing. They were imaging it somehow, and
Yeah,
then just keep
trying
doing
9 passwords and then re-imaging and trying another 9, and at
it. Yeah,
supercomputer speeds. So
uh,
eventually
but,
you will hit the 4 to 6 characters that are required for a password like that.
right.
But it doesn't
Except
seem
now
to
they
be a very
fixed it.
efficient way to do it.
No, especially now that Apple will disable the data port of the
Yeah.
connector. Anyways, back to this story though. I mean, it as it stands now, I have no reason to believe Bloomberg's story at all. I mean, could there be a shred of truth? And that's the thing; you can't even have a shred of truth. Either
Yeah,
it's
it's either true or it's not.
either true or not, right? So, I mean, so I don't believe that there's things on these servers, the size of a pencil tip it would have been produced on these servers when those servers were produced, because you know I don't even know how you would do it afterwards, but they
No,
would have
you
had
couldn't.
a, who knows?
Well, according to some reports,
I don't believe
part of the way that I guess they're saying that this was found is that some servers were showing up as 2 separate machines though using the same IP address to help hide the activity, which I don't know. That just seems kind of like nonsense.
No, a
You can
lot
only
of
have, each
servers.
machine can only have one IP address.
No, a lot of servers have dual NICs. Plenty of servers have dual NICs in them.
Yeah, well, this isn't a dual NIC situation. This is where it's using the same IP address, but somehow splitting it off and sending it in a different direction or something along those lines. I mean, it was really, really odd.
It's not. I mean, that's the thing. They would have had to go from the source, trace out packets from where it's supposed to go to where it went, and it doesn't
It seems
seem.
it would just seems to me it would just be easier just to give somebody a lot of money and get a password,
You
you
know,
know, and
uh,
then download it remotely and then send it over through another server.
I think Apple would have said something if they thought, even if it wasn't the full truth. I think they would have, if there was any truth to it, they would have said some parts of it maybe happened, but they're completely denying everything about it. The only story is, I think they said they discontinued using them for some reason, but they didn't say because of that. And Amazon saying the same thing. So it's
Yeah.
just it's a weird story, and I think we'll find out that somebody made it up either at Bloomberg or this other company or their sources, and I think that will just die now.
Or they'll hope it's just going to die.
Yeah,
All right,
that's my
we're
that's my
going to
guess.
take a little break,
Right.
and when we come back, we have two more stories. And as usual, if you guys have anything to say, go ahead and get it into the comments, and we'll talk about it here. So stand by. We'll be right back.
This is Private Eye Macintosh, and I'm here to tell you about a book written about me and my search for the Maltese Cube. Yes, it's a fine book. I think you should get it. Quiet, you. It combines technology, Mac trivia, action, murder, suspense. Oh, just tell them where to get it. I'll get to that. Romance, film noir detective fiction. I can't stand it anymore. It's called The Maltese Cube, and it was written by my Mac writer and podcaster Guy Searle. Find it on Amazon. It's only $2.99 and coming soon to the Apple's iBook store. Don't forget, it's The Maltese Cube and so inexpensive. You know you're not in it, right? I'm in the next one, right? Sure thing, Louis. You know, this could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Get The Maltese Cube on Amazon and soon in the iBook store.
Okay, and we are back. Wasn't
Yes,
that
we are.
exciting? Let's see. Marcus Benjamin says it was found by an investigator hired to comb through the network infrastructure of a company, and he found odd pings going to foreign powers. It was then located on a server, probably made, what was the name of the company? Supermicro?
Supermarket, yeah. So that's the claim, I guess. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
I guess that's where the whole story
That's the
started
claim.
from.
Okay. No,
Okay, well,
let's
thanks,
see.
Marcus.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes sense for a story. So you know, that's
Oh, excuse me. I think I'm coming down with something. The next story we have is get to the top of Apple's podcast charts for $50. This is a
well. Why
story.
aren't you doing this?
I don't know. I guess I'm thinking that I'm just so talented
For
that
$50?
talent will out. No,
Just
I see. I
put
need
some
that
money
money
inside.
for new ear pods.
We got 5 people in the room. If everybody gave you $10, you could get to the top of the chart.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll talk about all kinds of ways that you can send me money later before we get done with this podcast, assuming that all 5 of these people are still on at that point.
Stay tuned. I think you're sleeping. Good.
Okay, well, several seemingly out of place podcasts hit the top of the podcast charts, which raised a few eyebrows. While Apple has never disclosed how they set their rankings, News Subscriptions is rumored to be near the top of the heap. There are services that for a fee will subscribe or comment and download podcast episodes in an attempt to influence the rankings through the use of click farms with bogus Apple accounts. One such podcast, a real estate advice show, shot up to the top ranks when it had been in the low 100s previously. I actually have no idea where the MyMac podcast is in the rankings because they only go through the top 10. And shock upon shock, the MyMac.com podcast is not in the top 10. I don't know.
I didn't even know they rated them.
Oh, yeah. You go over to iTunes and then go to, let's see,
Can you
then
do
go
it in
to
the
podcast.
App? Like I'm in the podcast app.
And then if you go to the store.
Top charts. Joe Rogan. He's in the lead.
Yeah. And as I'm going through the top 100 here, not seeing the MyMac podcast.
There's actually
of course, that's for all podcast episodes. That doesn't break it down.
Seth Meyers has a podcast. Hey, you know what? I should probably listen to some of these. I don't like Joe Rogan at all.
Honestly, there's not a whole lot of other podcasts I listen to. I honestly don't have the time. I spend very, very little time in my car going to work. And Wednesdays and the weekends and on the odd occasion during the week, I'm doing my own stuff. So unfortunately, I don't really have a lot of time to listen to podcasts.
I listen to a good amount now. I started getting into it. I listen to you guys. I'm
sorry. I apologize.
You should. But I also like Coltcast. They're good. macOS Ken.
Yeah.
He's good. Coltcast, macOS Ken, and 9 to 5 Mac has one, and then there's Grumpy Old Geeks. They're good. And then what's the other one?
The one I do kind of take my time to listen. Well, of course, Tech Fan by Tim and Dave, and also the Mac Geek Gab with Dave Hamilton and John F. Braun.
I listen to them too. I sometimes get Accidental Tech Podcast is good too.
Somebody told me about that and said that was pretty funny.
They're good. Yeah, it's Mac based. So, yeah, Accidental Tech 9 to 5. Oh, it says Ken. Coldcast. Yeah. So, you know.
All right.
Yeah. So, yeah, pay the $50 and see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, pay $50, take your chance. I would actually be afraid to do that because thinking I would get like banned or something for doing that.
What do you get?
I don't know. I guess it's mostly if you have a show where you have advertisers or you're trying to get advertisers, you can use that as, saying, well, I'm a top 10 show in the technology category in Apple's iTunes, which is the biggest podcast aggregator that's out there. So I guess, yeah, you could use that to try to gain advertisers and things along those lines. Honestly, I would rather have 5 or 6 people that actually listened and enjoyed than, a couple of 100,000 that aren't really real, that aren't really there.
But if we were higher up, we wouldn't have to, advertise Ed's book and your movie.
But here's the thing, we have 6 people watching this show. Yeah. So,
download Guy's Maltese thing.
Maltese Cube, yeah. Because it's a great book. It's a wonderful book. One of these days, I've got the script. I wanted to do it as a serial podcast, but I'm sorry. When I say I'm not talking about serial, the podcast that was so popular last year. Just as like a serial podcast, like old time radio kind of podcast, because that's kind of where the genre is set for it. Right. But again, it's a huge undertaking because you have to get together with the various people that are going to do the voices and they're scattered all over the place. I had this one girl, Erin. Oh darn it, I can't think of her name. I could go to the Maltese Cube page and get it. But she had a great voice. She did all kinds of voices.
Oh, yeah.
And I just never had the chance to get back with her to do it. And there were people like all over the world that was set up to record it. But again, trying to coordinate with everyone, it's almost a full-time job. And I'm thinking at this point, I need to turn it over to somebody else to do, because I just don't have the time, and I would love to have it done. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't
All right,
what we were talking about.
We were finishing up the podcast.
Yeah. So this real estate advice
But
show
very believable.
was
Yes.
very, very bad people. All right, the
Yeah.
last story that
This
I
is a
have.
fun story. Let's get to these.
Okay, last story I have for tonight.
New stuff.
New upcoming iPad Pro could support 4K video and USB-C. This was a story from the Inquirer.net. Apple's next iPad Pro might have some big changes. While the 4K viewing is nice, the real big change would be switching to USB-C from Apple's Lightning connector. It would mark the first time Apple has used a non-Apple proprietary connector for iOS devices. Of course, they started with FireWire, which was an Apple connection, then the 30-pin connector, and then the Lightning connector. Those who are heavily invested with Lightning peripherals will probably be a tad bent out of shape, as were those who invested in 30-pin devices. But if true, it kind of makes some sense. The USB-C connector, like the Lightning connector, is non-handed, which means it doesn't matter how you put it in. It's just going to work. And it's also a up and coming standard across computer platforms. And if Apple starts using it for iOS devices, we'll probably lock it into place for years to come. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about USB-C, and it's mostly because of that Apple is using the exact same shape for Thunderbolt 3, and I really don't understand why they did that.
It's not Apple. It's everybody. It's not an Apple thing. Thunderbolt 3.
Well, no, Thunderbolt is Apple, isn't it?
It's Intel. My wife's.
I know USB-C is Intel.
Yeah, but so is Thunderbolt.
Is it really? I wasn't aware of that. So
There's
why does Intel want to use the same shape
They do
for both USB-C and Thunderbolt?
because it's a connector port. So there's PCs. There's Windows PCs with Thunderbolt 3 and USB 4.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. I guess try to simplify it, less ports. That's the reason. So you could, take one port and it could do a whole host of things
Right.
rather than have to have two ports, one for Thunderbolt 3 and one for something else. So
Yeah,
it's a universal
I
port.
mean Thunderbolt 3 though is, I mean, and that's not to say that USB-C isn't also a very fast standard, but Thunderbolt 3 blows everything out of the water. And typically when you have multiple devices running on the same bus, if one is significantly slower than the other, it can impact the speed that is going out from the other one.
How would that even do it? I mean, think about how you would even have that happen. So you have a Thunderbolt 3 drive
Mm-hmm.
connected to the USB port. You plug it in.
I don't think it would work.
Huh?
Well, I mean, there's besides drives, there's printers, there's microphones and audio interfaces, and I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that connects up via USB.
Right, but you're not plugging them all into the same port. Maybe the Macs have 4 Thunderbolt, USB-C ports, so you don't have to use the same one.
But are they double? Are they pulling double duty?
No.
I've got dedicated USB ports on the back of this iMac, as well as 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports that I guess can also do USB-C.
Sure.
I don't know. It just seems like
it doesn't affect. I think it was just to simplify the connection. And as far as putting it on an iPad, from what the article is saying is, the article, this one doesn't say it, but there's other articles that say, it might be a USB-C port in conjunction to a Lightning port as well.
what, 2 ports on an
Mhm.
iPad? I don't know. That's not typically the Apple way.
Right. But they're saying that port is, the USB-C port is more for hooking up a 4K monitor to the iPad to make it more of a laptop replacement, like a docking station kind of thing.
Well,
So-
that kind of falls in line with what I was talking about in previous shows,
Well, yeah.
where you've
Which
got,
had-
I mean, basically your computer is this right here. It goes
Right,
into
so-
a docking port, and then you've got a graphical user interface for all of your iOS
they
apps.
But they're not doing it with the iPhone, or at least they didn't do it 2 weeks ago. They could. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from putting
Yeah.
a USB port on an iPhone and connecting it to a monitor and Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, or Bluetooth keyboard. Yeah, I mean, but and it's all rumor. My bet is no USB-C port on it. It's just going to have the Lightning connector still. You could hook up a monitor to it if you want, like before.
Through
the other
dongles.
winner-
Frank Petrie says there's money in their dongles.
Well, sure, of course there is, but right now you could hook up a monitor to an iPad or an iPhone. You don't.
Mhm.
You need a dongle, but you need a Lightning to HDMI, and it works.
Or SVGA or DVI or whatever the standard is.
Yeah,
So I guess it would typically be HDMI.
It's Lightning to digital out is what it is.
Right.
So you can do that, or you can mirror it, things like that. So the hope is if they get a USB-C port, the iPad could do something that it couldn't do before, which would be more like external storage or transferring of files or whatever. Because right now
It's not
Lightning-
easy. It can be done. I mean, you've got files now, and even before files, you had cloud support with Dropbox and Box and all the rest of those.
they sell Lightning drives. iXpand is one. I could go to Best Buy and get a 256 gig Lightning drive plugged in, and it could read files off there too.
Well, I had a Western Digital that was Bluetooth connected
Yeah,
to
I have one that's
iOS devices.
yes, or wireless or Lightning connected. So there's ways to do it.
Yeah,
It's just not.
yeah, with
it's
Wi-Fi, not
an
Bluetooth.
easy. Yeah, it's not easy. So Apple wants to make the iPad more like a desktop.
What's a computer?
Yeah, they want to make it a laptop or desktop replacement. So, having that could help. Apple gets asked constantly every day, multiple times a day, saying, for people who bought an iPad instead of a laptop, my friend gave me this drive, and how do I get this on my iPad? How do I see this? That's what they get. So Apple has to say, well, you got to use cloud storage, blah, blah, blah. So for those people, if you could say, here, get yourself a USB
Whatever.
adapter, a USB-C to a USB-A adapter, and plug it in, and you can see the drive. They'll do that because that will save them some headache. But we'll see. It's definitely kind of just thinner bezels. It's definitely going to be Face ID, and it's going to be thinner, and that's what it's going to be.
What?
And I'm going to get.
They're going to go to all that trouble just to make something thinner? That's crazy talk.
Yeah, they like that. Paper thin. You could cut yourself on that.
Okay. I don't think we have anything else that people want to talk about in the chat room. So
No, not really.
If there is some way that people could get a hold of you, Warren, how would they do it?
No, I don't know. They
Or
don't need
could
to do
they?
it. Yeah, Facebook message me or post on Join Back to the Future and interact with
It's a
me
good
that
site.
way.
Unless
Or
you're Raul.
Google, I think my Google Plus still works.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, MySpace, it's up and coming, man.
I think
It's going to be
MySpace is
there.
still up there too. Yeah, my Google Plus. I should actually check to see if it's still going.
If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can reach me by sending me an email to guy@mttfgo.com. And of course, I am Mac Parrot over there on the Twitters. If you'd like to help support the show, you can subscribe via Patreon, patreon.com/Mac Parrot. If you'd like to make just like a one-time donation, coffee, ko-fi.com, also Mac Parrot. Either one of those ways will put a little bit of money in my pocket and help me offset some of the costs of doing all the crazy things that I do. And yeah, I think that's going to about do it. I appreciate the fact that all of you have come and joined us this evening here on the Mac to the Future Go livecast. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. Warren, what else you got?
Yeah, I'm installing Google Plus on my phone.
You are? Is it still available? All right,
It is.
I can play the light game. You know I can.
So wait,
I can play the light game.
Yeah. Hold on. Google Plus. Ooh, and notice who I am. It's signing in. No thanks to notifications. Let's see what I got. Jennifer Lawrence is in there.
Yeah.
What a
Jennifer Lawrence.
what a garbage pile this thing is. What do I even do? Yeah.
Yeah, check out the mymac.com podcast Google Plus page. It's a great place to be.
I'm getting things in different languages. I'm scared.
So,
all right. Well.
All right. Well, anyway, thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. We really, really do appreciate it. And we shall catch you probably next week. You're going to be on next week, Warren, or you got someplace to be?
I'm here next week. I don't know.
All right. Excellent. So we will see you all next time on the Mac to the Future Go livecast. Say goodnight, Warren.
Good night, Guy.
Ah.